Welcome to the Grit and Grow podcast, where we talk to guests who are pursuing excellence in both sport and life, who encourage and motivate us to become better mentors, coaches, parents, and athletes. My name is Shane Sowden, head men's basketball coach at Briarcrest College, and also your co-host.
And my name is Justin Simpkins, co-host and director of Prairie Hockey Academy. On the Grit and Growth podcast show today, we have Scott Dutertre, all the way from Tulsa, Oklahoma, originally from Saskatchewan, actually grew up on a farm just outside of Dinsmore, played his minor hockey throughout Sask, decided to get into coaching. He's coached in the Western Hockey League, the University of Saskatchewan, and he's recently written a book. Now, talking to Scott, I took away a lot of stuff about his new book, Coaching by Design. Being a design grad himself in digital design, he's recognized ways to better communicate, to hold the attention of athletes longer, but actually in truth shorter, because he's developing his practice plans or his video review to meet today's generations intentionally.
Yeah, Justin, I really enjoyed hearing Scott's story, just growing up playing minor hockey and some of the challenges there and how that shaped how he coaches today, moving from a more transactional posture to a transformational one, and how he's done that, and around some values of service and curiosity and being intentional about having like something as simple as having really hard conversations with his players, but honest ones. So yeah, there's a lot of takeaway from this interview, and really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So if you're coaching minor sports today, running a team somewhere, and you want to understand how to really connect with some of these new generations that might be younger than you, there's a bigger gap, I think today's episode can provide a lot of great insight for you. So enjoy today's episode with Scott. Welcome to the Grit and Growth podcast, Scott. We are, really excited to have you join us all the way from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I know you're going to be in Saskatchewan again soon. From Dinsmore, Saskatchewan. So we've got a Saskatchewan hockey coach, about 30 years of experience, and also an author of recently with a new book called Coaching by Design. I think you got a lot to share with us today, but welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited to be here.
I think for our listeners out there, I'm excited to just have, another Saskatchewanite here on the podcast. But tell us a little bit about, you grew up in Dinsmore, Saskatchewan, played some minor hockey in some crazy arenas and throughout, rural Saskatchewan. Tell us a little bit about just your upbringing, what got you into coaching after hockey, things like that.
I was a farm kid. I'd get in trouble if I didn't say I grew up between Dinsmore and Wyston. So they're two towns down the road from each other. So I grew up on a farm there, played all my minor hockey in Dinsmore. And then I went on to play junior hockey. Initially, I played the Jungle Bee stuff with all the goofy line brawls and all that. You learn to fight. Played for the Saskatoon Chiefs, and then I went on to play for Weyburn Red Wings. I was fortunate enough to play there and go to a Royal Bank Cup. It was a really good experience there, and spent some time in Grenfell as well. And then after I was done my season, my last year of junior, I got an opportunity I could have went to Mount Royal. It was Mount Royal College at the time in Calgary, or be an El Paso Buzzard in the Western Pro Hockey League. So my dad wanted me to go to school. So of course I'm going to sign the pro contract instead. And my hockey career ended on the Mexican border. I played a little bit of senior. I played a little bit of senior back home for a couple of years. But during that time, I started working at a training facility. It was called Acceleration. They had franchises all over North America. We had a skating treadmill and a running treadmill. Oh. Did a lot of speed training, and I worked with a lot of, I was really fortunate. My starting clientele were all the major, junior, and like professional players. And I started training them, and all the guys that were better than me that moved on, and they'd come home in the summer and they needed somebody to work with them. And when I was training, we had players that were playing in the NHL some of them would skate on the machine, some of them would skate or would do a running program. And I never understood that. Well, I thought this treadmill was supposed to fix everybody. And it got me on this journey about just being curious about, there's not one way of doing this thing. And so I started just learning from different coaches and methodologies all over the world, like Russian hockey, Finnish hockey. How do we make players faster? And then how do we stick handle better? How are we more efficient? What do they do at the NHL level? How do we shoot harder? And I guess I got a niche as a skills coach, training players right from when I was 21. So I've been really lucky that I kind of fell into that job, and I would train players in the off season. But from there, I wanted to try and I always have other jobs. I had to have a real job for a living. And it was like, how could I do this year round? And I started going to communities and teaching skating and or running hockey schools. For me, it's seeing growth in players. Like the best part of my job is the light bulb moments, and whether I was in development or what I do on a bench now or in practice now, when they get that moment, when all of a sudden everything clicks and it's working, that's the best part of my job.
Two words that stick out to me. You mentioned curiosity and service. And this is refreshing to hear, especially from somebody who's coaching professional athletes. Where did those values start to take shape? Like, you talk about minor hockey at home. Like, yeah, where'd that start to take shape for you?
I think it was just some experiences I had as a player, and uh, one thing that growing up, my dad was my coach most of the time, with the exception of 1 year as my coach. I wouldn't even be on the ice. He didn't want to yell at the kid, so he'd give it to me. And he's not here. He's not with us anymore. But it was one of the things that almost we had closure in our relationship. We were in Swift Current. It was a preseason game, and he came into the coach's office. And I remember Dean Brockman was our head coach, and him and I were sitting in the office with him, and he said, I was really hard on you all the time. And when they left that night, I looked at Dino and I just said, like, he's never said that to me.
Mm.
And it was one of those things that I don't want players to have to go through that same experience. As a player, because again, I wasn't the greatest player on the planet. And I hated having those conversations, or you're not in the lineup and you ask a coach, well, what do I need to do? Well, just keep doing what you're doing. Well, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'm still sitting in the stands. Like, you can tell me what you need me to do. Like, don't be afraid. Like, don't be shy about telling me. But those are some of the things that it sounds bad, but it's almost like the what not to do. So I always wanted to try and be transparent. Um, when I first started coaching, and this is just the actual coaching side, I was coaching junior B in Saskatoon, and as an assistant coach, my first year I just kept my mouth shut, uh, was a good cop, talked with all the kids, and then the next year, our head coach, and I'm grateful, Paul Bowles was the guy that got me into coaching. He saw me at the rink the one night and asked me if I wanted to help him, and that's what got me started on being on the bench. And the next year, though, Paul left, and so I was the head coach. My first year, I was an idiot. Like, you broke the sticks and you screamed and everything else. And I can thank the one kid, Derek Ritchie. He was a pain in my butt all the time coaching, but kid took a 10-minute misconduct. I'm in the hallway, I'm mad, and I smashed the stick, and I come in and I got half a broken stick in my hand. And I'm yelling at him, and I said, don't you ever take another 10-minute misconduct. And he looks at me and smiles. Like, what are you gonna do with that stick? It's like, crap, he called me on this. And after that game, I went home and I'm thinking to myself, because by that time I'd been training professional players. And I'm like, if I ever treated any of these players like this, they'd knock me out and fire me. So it's like,
Mm.
why am I doing this to players? For me too, when I'm talking to players, you'll have a conversation with a guy, even like at this level in junior, wherever, and it's like, hey, you're not playing tonight. How come? Weren't good enough last night. Here's why you weren't good enough. We'll stay on the ice after morning skate here. We'll work on some stuff, and then come see me in the office after. Yeah, I got some video. So I still might not be their favorite person, but at least they know I'm trying to help them. And it's like, they know, they understand, even if they don't agree, they can at least, they understand what I'm trying to, or what I'm looking for, and we'll look at the video or work on stuff on the ice and give you some tools, because a lot of times, a lot of coaches that I've experienced, you don't have those tools, and I want them to have at least something, have something coming out of that interaction.
I'm curious a bit. Did a real shift happen for you when when you had that conversation with your dad, pregame that night?
It was a life-changing moment for me because before that, we never had that conversation, and it was really weird. Now I'm gonna get really sappy here, but the week before he passed away, it was I was we went for dinner the night before we came back down to Tulsa. It was the first time he told me he was proud of me, and then a week later, I get a phone call that he passed away, but again, it's just you never know where life's going to take you. You never know how moments are gonna happen. And I was just really lucky that I was fortunate enough. A lot of people don't have those opportunities, and we had those couple conversations, and so I was really lucky that way. So yeah, like those were life changing moments for me.
Yeah. I think the power of a father is really cool, and it's really neat to hear the power of an adult, a dad, essentially saying sorry, or I was like this, and I apologize, and then just those simple words that we can give as a father or as a leader, that I'm proud of you, and just how much that impact that can have on anybody's life, young person or older.
We've got a lot of quite like just a lot of parents that listen to this podcast, but a lot of hockey parents, and just from you sharing that story, like what would you like just with that whole father son relationship? What's like the most important message you'd like to share with just parents in general? With their kids are in minor hockey right now, and we live in Saskatchewan where everybody's going to the NHL,
Yeah.
and yeah, like for somebody that's lived through that, yeah, what would you say to those parents?
I think the most important thing is you have to evaluate and keep reevaluating, like, what does success mean, and what does it mean to your child, and what does it mean to you? Because a lot of the game, like, there have been two or three major shifts over the time that I've been in the sport on a coaching side of it, where things have changed and things escalate. And so it's to me, you see everything building up, and like before, you'd get a guy that gets drafted. You have the draft pitcher, they're standing there with the hat and the jersey, and then they sign a contract. There's a picture of them signing the contract. Well, now the 8-year-old kid that's signing with the Super League team is standing there with his parents around, and they're posting it on Instagram. And like it went from pro down to junior, and then down to minor hockey now. Like it's just everything snowballs. And it's the cliche sports answer, but it really is about the journey. And again, I coached a spring hockey team in Calgary for 6 years, and I honestly was trying to get fired my first parent meeting because I thought it was going to be a bunch of wingnuts. It turned into one of the most rewarding things I ever did as a coach. And for me, it was always about. I joked around that it's like we got to have. I made it mandatory that they played another sport, or they were in a music program or an art program or something. Because I said, like, one or two of you might blow a knee. We're not all going to get to the NHL guys. They were 8 years old when we started, and so we were extracurricular to whatever that other sport was. Like, I don't want to hear you missing baseball practice because you're coming to skate with us. And the group that I worked with was fantastic in terms of keeping the budget low, so they didn't have to make a choice in between what they're spending their money on. But for these guys, we always made sure that they had an identity besides being a hockey player. And I think that's one of the biggest issues that we have, is there's this identity crisis because since they're 6 or 7 years old, they're a hockey player. And since they're 6 or 7 years old, I'm the parent of a hockey player. It's the prestige thing for them as well. And
Scott, it sounds like you mentioned having hard conversations and how a lot of like in your experience, a lot of coaches kind of avoid those. So it sounds like another value that's really important to you is honesty, and like having a not only just having a heart to heart with a player, but then, hey, but I'm going to stay with you after practice. We're going to work on this, and then we're going to break down some film. So, from your experience, what's so important about like being honest, even though it's really, really difficult, and then having tangible, like, hey, we're gonna get on the ice, then I'm gonna show you in film. we're gonna break this down, like that whole thing, curiosity, service, honesty. Can you just speak to that a little bit?
It's really weird, and you'd be surprised at what levels that, like, there's experiences I've had at different levels that are high end levels where you'd come in after a skate or whatever, and it's like, oh, do they know they're not in the lineup? No, I don't. And you know that person just is dodging the subject, or else they'll, oh, I forgot. You didn't forget. It sucks having those conversations, but maybe it was good I wasn't the greatest hockey player because I had enough people telling me that stuff, and so I just don't want them to have to experience that. I want to try and give them some reasoning why, and or else, and giving them some tools, because again, to me I don't care what level you're at. It's like for us, they talk about our level. It's AHL is more of a development league than what our level is. It's and but I think our level is just as important. And to me, the game's a metaphor for your life. And I kind of came at it where I've had to work my way up to being a coach at a level where, as opposed to certain guys have retired from the game and just kind of walked into that level. And again, it's that's fantastic for them. I'm jealous of them that, but my journey's taken me a different path. And so I've had to had those interactions. I've had to work my way up, and I've had to again have a certain values and beliefs that I have to stand by, because if I compromise those, it it doesn't work for me.
Scott, you talked about numerous aspects of hockey culture and some of the challenges there. In your opinion, if you could just give a like a quick snapshot, like in your opinion, what do you think's the biggest challenge facing, I guess, just hockey culture and minor hockey in general, in 2025?
Everybody's in a rush to be elite. I think that, and it's been that way for years. It was there was always undertones of it even when I was a kid, but now it's everybody. Like when I started doing the skill stuff with kids in minor hockey, it would be they'd work in groups. And then it morphed into, well, no, I want private lessons because I my kid needs to have the edge. I don't want the other people knowing I'm doing this stuff. So I think everybody's in a rush to be elite and trying to keep up with the next player. And I think it's, again, we push rubber. Like that's all we're doing. We're pushing a piece of rubber around. Some people are lucky enough they get to do it for a living. I almost named my book that, was pushing rubber, because it's like that is all we do. In the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
um, we're not that important. There's
Yeah.
other things going on in the world that are way more important than what we do. Now, at the same time, do I put all my energy and my passion into it? Absolutely. But I think that, to me, is that everybody is in such a rush to be elite.
Yeah. Just big piece of this is just remember, just keep first things first in your life. Remember that that it is a game
Mhm.
and that we're learning life skills, but we're keep a north star in focused on what we're doing. Um, I appreciate that too. I think kind of three things maybe. Your book you talk a lot about inside of your book, just about the steps and the processes of, like, building trust and building a culture, and not just leaving it to chance or just hoping that it comes together. What are three things that every coach needs to know about being intentional to build a culture?
Well, again, I think the players can smell when you're fake.
Yeah.
Like I said about the guy going to have the conversation with players, and then they know they're in trouble as soon as they step on the ice, because, like, uh-oh, this is not going to be good, because I've never had
Yeah.
a conversation with it before. I think it's being authentic. Like for me, I always want to be like my coaching values. I'm accountable for everything I do.
Yeah.
If I screw something up, I let the player know.
Yeah.
So being accountable. Um, Commitment. Like I prepare for everything. Like I cut like 300 games a year. My job is to be prepared. If I take it personally, if I've watched the last 4 games of a team, I don't shortcut it, because if they score in an offensive zone faceoff or something, it better be something we haven't seen before, because it'll kill me if I didn't catch it. So my commitment to the team, and hopefully then they commit. They know I'm putting in the work. They put the work in back. Um, Transparency, having the tough conversations, and then the other thing is just joy. Like, you have to. I love what I do every day, and I think, though, that authenticity, I think that's the most important thing, because we have leadership book. You have leadership books. You go to conferences and clinics and things, and it's, if all of a sudden you're a person that's a little more shy, and all of a sudden you try being the loud guy in the room or whatever, they know it's not authentic. And you guys, just from knowing me for the last 50 minutes, I like to talk. So, like, that's me. And so I am one of those social guys that walks around the room and talks to guys. I want to know what's going on.
I love it. Scott, this has been really good. I've thanks for being authentic and just sharing your story with us on the podcast. I think a lot of our listeners will resonate. We've got a Saskatchewan farm kid, blue collar, hard worker, who believes in authenticity and accountability, being committed to his craft. I think your story of transparency, just in regards to relationship with your father, and that reconciliation of that, and that just that trajectory change for you in your life sounds like it's having a huge ripple effect in the young men that you get to lead now. Coaching by Design is out now. We can order that on Amazon for anybody that's interested in it. It's a book that talks about structuring your team and your process, your culture, and everything by design, being intentional, and how that can lead to better communication amongst your athletes. And so I'm excited to read the book myself. Thanks for coming on today and talking about yourself, your book, and coaching as the craft that you've designed it as.
Well, I appreciate you guys doing this kind of stuff. I think it's so important to just, again, it's just more touch points to educate people, and especially with the best sport in the world.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Grit and Growth podcast. We hope that you enjoyed today's guest and the answers that they were able to give and the stories they were able to tell. If you did enjoy today's episode, we'd ask that you would just follow or subscribe to our podcast. It does help us get the word out in our message. Thanks again. Have a great day.